Go, I said.
हाँ. Recording started.
In yesterday's session, we talked about the different types of accounts. We understood the different rules of accounting for them. Today, as I told you, we'll be talking about the different nature of transactions, and with the help of different nature of transactions, we'll try to identify the accounts getting affected in that, and to that accounts, how do we give the effects in the journal entry. That's what we will be talking about today. So, technically speaking, the accounts are divided into two parts. I'm sorry, the transactions are divided into two parts. That is, transaction. I've already talked about this in the regular batch. Still, I am going in more details of that because I know if we understand this, we'll be able to utilize it very well. It becomes more easier and more comfortable for us to talk about these all things. The transactions are basically divided into cash transactions and the credit transactions. Pooja, you need to mute yourself. Yeah. So, what is a cash transaction? Any financial transaction involving immediate flow of cash or check. That is what we call transactions. Whereas, Pooja, you need to mute your hand. Okay. Whereas the credit transactions are any financial transaction against which no amount is paid or received immediately. That's what we call as the credit transaction. Like, take for example, if there is a cash transaction, in that cash transaction you are paying the money or you're receiving the money, that is cash or by check, immediately. Whereas in case of the credit transaction, you're entering into the transaction, but उस transaction के against आप immediately ना ही cash दे रहे हो ना ही cash ले रहे हो. That is what we call as a credit transaction. Now, when you are entering into the cash transaction, on one side of that transaction, you will always have cash or bank getting affected. Whereas on the other side of the transaction, we are following the double entry system. Whereas on the other side of the transaction, you will always find that there is a purpose for which you have entered into that transaction, or there is a person with whom you are entering into that transaction. That is what is the basic nature of a cash transaction. अब ये मैंने क्यों डिवाइड किया, क्योंकि इस बेसिस पे हमको अकाउंट आइडेंटिफाई करना बहुत ज्यादा आसान हो जाता है. when you're dividing the transaction into the cash and when you're dividing the transaction into cash and credit transaction, पहले आपको एनालाइज करना है कि ये कैश ट्रांजैक्शन या क्रेडिट ट्रांजैक्शन। अगर ये कैश ट्रांजैक्शन है तो एक साइड, एक इफेक्ट हमेशा इस ट्रांजैक्शन का कैश या बैंक होगा, और उसके अलावा जो दूसरा इफेक्ट आने वाला है, दैट सेकंड इफेक्ट विल बी आइदर अ पर्सन और द पर्पस फॉर व्हिच यू हैव एंटर्ड इनटू द ट्रांजैक्शन। वेयरएज इफ यू आर एंटरिंग इनटू अ क्रेडिट ट्रांजैक्शन, तो आपको ये याद रखना जरूरी है कि कौन से बंदे को पैसा देना है या कौन से बंदे से पैसे लेने हैं। एंड फॉर दैट पर्पस इन अ क्रेडिट ट्रांजैक्शन, on one side you'll always have a person getting affected, whereas on the other side of that transaction you'll have the activity or the purpose for which that particular amount is receivable or that amount is payable. तो क्रेडिट ट्रांजैक्शन में हमेशा आपके पास एक साइड पर्सन मिलने ही वाला है। कैश ट्रांजैक्शन में जरूरी नहीं है कि पर्सन आएगा। कैश ट्रांजैक्शन में पर्पस भी आ सकता है, पर्सन भी आ सकता है। अगर पर्पस दिया हुआ है तो पर्सन की कोई वैल्यू नहीं। सिंपल सी लॉजिक है। अगर मैं मार्केट में कोई पर्टिकुलर ट्रांजैक्शन करता हूं, मार्केट में जाता हूं, किसी से मैंने कोई चीज खरीदी, सपोज मैं गया और मार्केट में से कोई मेडिकल में से मैं अगर मेडिसिन ले आया, तो मेडिसिन ली, उसको पैसा दिया ना, मुझे उस मेडिकल वाले को याद रखने की जरूरत है ना मेडिकल वाले को मुझे याद रखने की जरूरत है। सो जहां पर्पस है, पर्सन की इंपॉर्टेंस ही नहीं है। जब कब ये कैश ट्रांजैक्शन हुआ तो, बट जब क्रेडिट ट्रांजैक्शन, सपोज मैं मेडिकल वाले के पास गया, उससे मैंने मेडिसिन ली और उसको कहा मैं पैसा बाद में देगा, तो उसको मेरे को याद रखना पड़ेगा और मुझे भी ये याद रखना पड़ेगा कि उस मेडिकल वाले को पैसा देना है। That's why in a cash transaction you'll always have the cash or bank on one side and person or purpose on the other side, whereas in the credit transaction you always have the person on one side and activity or purpose on the other side. So that's the basic aspect that you have to remember when you are analyzing a transaction. पहले हर ट्रांजैक्शन को आप डिवाइड कर लो कि ये कैश ट्रांजैक्शन है, ये क्रेडिट ट्रांजैक्शन है, और उसके बाद ही आप डिसाइड करोगे कि इसमें कौन से अकाउंट्स अफेक्ट हो रहे हैं। क्योंकि जब तक आप ये आइडेंटिफाई नहीं कर पाओगे कि इसमें कौन से अकाउंट अफेक्ट हो रहे हैं, you will not be able to decide, you will not be able to analyze that whether the account need to be debited or account need to be credited. एक बात और बता दूं यहाँ पे, whenever I use the term that a given account need to be debited, the simple meaning of that is that you have to write to the debit side, that is left hand side of that account. Whenever I say that the account need to be credited, that means आपको उस transaction का जो amount है वो उस account के credit side में लिखना होगा। That is what is the meaning of debited and credited. Account debited means amount of the transaction is written on left hand side or debit side of the account, right? अब उसके आगे क्या लिखेंगे, क्या रेफरेंस आएगा, वो सब हम लोग सीखेंगे, पर अमाउंट कहां लिखा जाएगा उस ट्रांजैक्शन का, तो डेबिट साइड में। अगर मैंने कहा द अकाउंट नीड टू बी डेबिटेड, similarly amount of transaction will be written on credit side if account is credited. तो जब आपको कहा जाता है that the given account is credited, means you are going to write the amount of that given transaction to the credit side, to the right hand side of that particular account. Well, anyways, now before I go ahead, Yesterday I talked about the different types of accounts. I just summarized the various rules applicable to these all accounts. So the rule for personal account, the rule for that will be what? Debit the receiver of the landline, I'm sorry, receiver of benefit, है ना? लैंडलाइन का रिसीवर आजकल कौन यूज करता है? एनीवेज, क्रेडिट द गिवर ऑफ बेनिफिट। मतलब क्या? Now when you are thinking of a person, you have to look at it from your perspective. Your perspective means what? The person for whom you are doing the accounting. Understand, observe. Suppose there is this fellow, let's say Jhumru, right? And then there is another fellow, that is Jhumri, right? Now, when you are doing the accounting, let's say in the books of Jhumru, correct? Suppose the transaction is Jhumru paid cash to Jhumri. Jhumru paid cash to Jhumri. In this case, from the perspective of Jhumru, Jhumri is the receiver. And from the perspective of Jhumri, Jhumru is the giver. Correct? So in the books of Jhumru, Jhumri will be debited. Correct? Whereas from the perspective of Jhumri, Jhumru will be credited. Correct or not? Because for Jhumru, Jhumri is the receiver of benefit, but for Jhumri, Jhumru is the giver of benefit. Correct? I hope you understood the basic rule of debit the receiver and credit the giver of benefit. Am I right for all? Okay. The next rule is for the real accounts. Real account is basically related to what a business owns. Whatever is owned by the business, that is what we call as the real accounts. So in the case of real accounts, the rule is debit what comes into the business, not only physically but also by legal terms. Credit what goes out of business. Is it right? Again, we'll take the example of Jhumru. Let's say there is this fellow called as Jhumru, right? अब मान लो झुमरू भाई साहब ने एक घर खरीदा. तो झुमरू भाई साहब गाना गा रहे थे, तेरे घर के सामने एक बंगला बनाऊंगा, or something like that. Well, so Jhumru purchase this property. In that case, the property is comes in. Therefore, property will be debited. Is it right? Whereas, suppose Jhumru के पास एक झोपड़ा था, जो जीबी सर ने बनाया था, अगर आपको याद होगा तो. सपोज ये झुमरू के पास झोपड़ा था, ये झुमरू ने सेल कर दिया. सो दिस इज गोइंग आउट और नॉट? गोज आउट. बिजनेस में से वो झोपड़ा उधर के उधर ही रहेगा, झोपड़ा उठ के नहीं जा रहा है. तो झोपड़ा बेच के उसने बंगला खरीद लिया, इसलिए झोपड़ा विल बी credited and bangla will be debited. Why? Debit what comes in, credit what goes out. Am I right? So that's the rule for the real accounts. Whereas the rule for nominal accounts. Nominal accounts. What is the rule for nominal accounts? Debit all expenses and losses, whereas credit all incomes and gains. So if you are making any kind of profits, those will be debited. I'm sorry, those will be credited. And if you are incurring any kind of expenses, those will be debited. तो अगर तुम्हारे जेब से पैसा गया और तुम्हारे लिए वो खर्च है, then in that case you will be required to debit it. खर्च है मतलब क्या? You are basically incurring it for the purpose of generating any kind of revenue. That's what you call as the expenses. So if there are any expenses that you have been incurring, in that case you will be required to debit those expenses. Whereas if you are getting any revenue, आपने गुड सप्लाई की, उसके अगेंस्ट रेवेन्यू आया, आपने सर्विसेज प्रोवाइड की, उसके अगेंस्ट पैसा आया, those all amounts will be credited. So when you are incurring the expense, you debit that amount. When you are getting some revenue, that will be credited. Am I clear for all? So that's how the transactions happen. When you are doing the accounting, you have to bring this into the mind. And if you are bringing that into the mind, automatically your transactions debit and credit gets more clear. और अगर आपका basic journal entry में debit credit सही हो गया, तो remember my dear friends, आपको posting में भी दिक्कत नहीं जाएगी. So first we'll be focusing only on this aspect, that how to debit, what to debit, how to credit, what to credit. All right? Okay. Let me come ahead now with certain examples. Let's say the first example is X1. वैसे आजकल आपके एक भी नहीं है, मुझे पता है, क्योंकि you are into the lockdown situation. लॉकडाउन में घर से बाहर नहीं निकल पा रहे, X की सिचुएशन कहां से आएगी? Right? So X1 वहां नहीं, यहां से ही कहीं तो मिल रहे हैं. Let's say the situation is purchased building from Bob. क्योंकि बॉब बिल्डर है ना, इसलिए purchased building from Bob the builder. Now what kind of transaction is this? There is no cash or check mentioned in this. There is a name of person given, and the activity of the given transaction is also mentioned. As all these three conditions are satisfied, therefore this will become a credit transaction. This will be called as a credit transaction. Now because this is a credit transaction, तो इसका मतलब क्या हुआ? एक साइड आपके पास बंदा मिलना चाहिए और दूसरे साइड पर्पस या एक्टिविटी मिलनी चाहिए. तो अब कहानी ये है कि एक साइड आपके पास आ गया मिस्टर बॉब. The account which is getting affected is Mr. Bob's account. On one side you'll always have a person when it comes to a credit transaction. दूसरे साइड आपकी एक्टिविटी क्या है? Purchased building. Correct? Out of that, effectively what is happening? Building is coming into the business or not? Therefore The two accounts which are getting affected is Bob and building account. Now, Bob is a personal account, whereas building is a real account because you are owning it. अगर आपने purchase की तो आप करने वाले हो ना. So Bob becomes a personal account and building becomes a real account. Now you have purchased it from Bob. Look at it from your perspective, not from Bob's perspective. तुम्हारे लिए Bob is the giver of benefit or not? And building is coming into the business or not? So applying the rules of accounting, we will debit what comes in, that is building, and we will credit the giver of benefit, that is Bob. I hope you understood this particular aspect. If anyone has a question till what I have talked about till now, you can just raise those questions, then I'll go to the next transaction. Yes, anyone having question can just come up. You need to unmute yourself and ask the question.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, Dheeraj, go ahead.
Sir, purpose is given na purchase building. So we can write purchase account debit to Bob.
Absolutely correct. See, point is that there are three types of things that we have into the business. One, we have goods. Second, we have assets. And third, we have consumables, which we purchase in the business. The things that we purchase into the business are primarily divided into three parts. Which three parts? Goods being purchased. Goods means what? The product in which we are dealing, or the product which we are using for the purpose of production. That is what we call as goods. Second is asset. Asset is basically something that you have purchased for the long-term use in the business. And third is consumable, something that you have purchased for short-term use in the business, not for the purpose of resale. That is what we call as consumable. तो जब आप goods purchase करते हो, तब account getting affected is purchase account. जब आप asset purchase करते हो, तो account getting affected is not purchase account. At that time, the account getting affected is asset account. और जब आप consumable purchase करते हो, the account getting affected will be the expense account and not the purchase account. And that's why here I said that the account getting affected will be what? Building account and not the purchases account. I'll just write this summary once again. I'd already explained that in the April batch, but May batch, I think I have missed out on that. Things purchased by business are divided into three parts, I said. What are those? First is goods, products in which business deals. These are called as goods. Then the second asset is, second thing that we purchase is assets. Purchased for long-term use and not for resale as such. Resale. That is what we call as assets. And third is consumables. Products purchased for short-term use and not for resale. That's what we call as the consumables. Now, when you purchase the goods, the account getting affected is purchase account. On purchase, the account getting affected will be purchase account. When you purchase the asset, the account getting affected is the respective asset account. Whereas when you purchase the consumables, the account getting affected is the consumable expense account. Like stationery purchase की तो stationery expense आ जाता है, right? But when you sell these all things, जब हम goods बेचते हैं तो account getting affected is sales account. जब हम asset बेचते हैं तो account getting affected is asset account itself. और consumable बेचने का सवाल ही नहीं उठता है, क्यों? consumable तो हमने consume कर लिए और इसलिए उसके बेचने का कोई सवाल ही नहीं उठता है. So therefore consumable will not applicable. It is दूसरे applicable. Also, so when you purchase the goods, the account getting affected is purchase account. When you sell the goods, the account getting affected is the sales account. When you purchase or sell the asset, in that case, the account getting affected is not purchase or sale. In that case, the account getting affected always will be the asset account. Whereas in the case of consumable, there is no question of selling it because we have not purchased it for the purpose of resale. मैंने कहा asset हम resale के लिए purchase नहीं करते, but over the period of time, अगर आपने यूज कर लिया इसको बहुत समय तक के और उसके बाद में अगर आपको लगता है कि आपने अब बेच देना चाहिए तो यू कैन सेल इट. लाइक मैंने कोई कार खरीदी, दैट कार इज एन एसेट फॉर माय बिजनेस. सो इन माय केस आई विल डेबिट कार अकाउंट. बट 5 साल बाद अब कार पुरानी हो गई, मुझे लगता है कि अब रिप्लेस करनी चाहिए, उस समय मैं नई गाड़ी खरीदने वाला हूँ, पुरानी गाड़ी बेचने वाला हूँ, तो गाड़ी जब बेचता हूँ तो अकाउंट गेटिंग अफेक्टेड अगेन विल बी द कार अकाउंट. राइट? सो दैट्स हाउ यू डिसाइड दैट व्हाट अकाउंट नीड टू बी need to given the effect of when you are dealing with the assets, expense or goods. I hope I'm clear. Yes, if anyone else has the question. All right. So I can go ahead. Fine. Let's understand and observe another transaction. X2. सर यहाँ पहला नहीं मिल रहा है, आप दूसरे को X बना रहे हो. Also, goods sold to Ramu on credit. Very specifically given in the question that the goods are sold on credit. मतलब ये क्रेडिट ट्रांजैक्शन हो गया. तो आपको ये सोचने की जरूरत ही नहीं है कि ये कैश ट्रांजैक्शन है, क्रेडिट ट्रांजैक्शन स्पेसिफिकली मेंशन्ड है. सो इन दिस केस अगेन वन अकाउंट गेटिंग अफेक्टेड बिकम्स पर्सन्स अकाउंट, क्योंकि बंदा रहेगा तब ना जाके अकाउंट अफेक्ट होगा. क्रेडिट ट्रांजैक्शन तो बंदे को याद रखना जरूरी है. एंड ऑन द अदर साइड व्हाट इज द एक्टिविटी? गुड्स सोल्ड. आई टोल्ड यू when the goods are sold, the account getting affected in that case will be what? Sales account. Now sales is my income. That means it is my nominal account. Yes or no? Whereas Ramu is a person and he is the receiver of benefit or not. And therefore sales income account will be credited because the rule for nominal accounts is debit all expenses and losses and credit all incomes and gains. Whereas Ramu being the receiver of benefit, therefore Ramu need to be debited. I hope you have got this point right. Correct? Then, yeah, if anyone has a question can just raise it. There is no problem. You can just keep going. I hope I'm going fine for everyone. समझ भी नहीं आ रहा है, आप communicate नहीं कर रहे हो तो. In fact, next time I'll be scheduling it as a what you call webinar only. Okay. Fine. The another situation is, the another example is, let's say cash deposited in Bank of Kuber. Cash deposited in Bank of Kuber. Very specific. ट्रांजैक्शन में क्लियरली लिखा हुआ है कैश, मतलब ये कैश ट्रांजैक्शन हो गया. और अगर ये कैश ट्रांजैक्शन हो गया तो on one side the account getting affected will be cash, and in fact there is another account getting affected is bank. Which bank? Bank of Kuber. Correct? So on one side there being a cash, being a real account, whereas Bank of Kuber is a personal account क्योंकि bank है artificial person. Correct or not? Cash is going out. Why cash goes out? ले पेंसिल ही बंद होगी. Cash is going out and therefore cash will be credited and Bank of Kuber is the receiver of benefit and therefore Bank of Kuber will be debited in the given transaction. I'll just write it here. Cash goes out, therefore cash will be credited, whereas Bank of Kuber is the receiver and Bank of Kuber will be debited. Isn't it simple? Once you start focusing from the basics point of view, you will start getting everything right. और एक बार तुमको debited, credited समझ में आ गया, journal entry is just a format. You can just do it. And based on that, we'll surely be able to understand how to do the posting also. And you will surely be having the confidence in only next 3 or 4 days maximum. 3 or 4 days भी बहुत ज़्यादा बोल दिए मैंने. Right? Now, I'll give you a home exercise today actually. You're expected to do this. This format is clear for everyone. In the exact this format, exact same format, what you are supposed to do, observe it. You all have got the question booklet with you of our CA Foundation book. In that question booklet, there is this question number 10, if you could observe. Question number 10 in your question booklet. This is already there with you. I know about it. Soft copy already आपके पास है. Hard copies भी बहुत सारे लोगों को मिल चुकी है. So what you are supposed to do is these following transactions. Do not follow modern approach. ये सारे transactions में आपके perspective से आपको क्या करना है? पहला, you have to identify whether it is a cash transaction or a credit transaction. दूसरा, you have to identify the accounts getting affected in that. तीसरा, to that accounts you have to identify their types. You have to apply their rules, and based on that you have to decide whether it is debit or credit. All right? क्या क्या कहा मैंने? Number 1, you have to identify whether it is a cash transaction or a credit transaction. Number 2, you have to identify the accounts getting affected in that transaction. Number 3, you need to identify the rules of that accounts, and you have to identify what is to be debited, what is to be credited. क्योंकि मैंने X को डेबिट किया इसलिए Y को क्रेडिट करना चाहिए. This should not be the case. X को डेबिट किया क्योंकि X का रूल ये है, Y को क्रेडिट किया क्योंकि Y का रूल ये है. Accordingly, when you'll be doing, it will be more convincing for you. You will get more confidence in that. All right? So you have to do it with the help of debit and credit. Is that clear for everyone? Yes. So for tomorrow, this is your home exercise. You'll complete this all and we will be talking about this in tomorrow's session. We'll now meet again at 9 o'clock. Thank you for today.